Equipped with his senses, man explores the universe around him and calls the adventure science. This series on the senses is approached from an educational perspective and not from a medical perspective. So when we look at the senses, we look at the senses that are naturally known, which is your sense of touch, your sense of smell, your sense of taste, your sense of hearing, your sense of sight, and this gap over here that represents the unknown senses, which are the inside senses. When we approach these senses in a sequence, it tells us a lot about what's happening in the baby's brain. The baby's brain is very vulnerable to sensory input. Too little sensory input means too little brain stimulation and often results in a more floppy baby or a non-responsive baby. Too much sensory input is not a good idea either, because it overwhelms the brain and it creates anxiety, and the baby becomes fussy, and it's very, very difficult for that baby to thrive because the baby's level of anxiety is too high. So the series is about finding that balance and figuring out what can we do on a practical level to create a better transition from life in utero to life in life for every new baby. Senses are the brain's way of finding out what is going on. The senses warn us if there's danger. If we watch a movie, our ears hear when the music is ominous, our eyes see the darkness and the shadows are threatening, the hair on our body stands on end so the skin can feel any movement, the mouth goes dry and your sense of smell heightens to smell the presence of another person or a dangerous substance. The tummy is in a knot. The senses also flood us with many reasons to be happy. For instance, when you meet an old friend and her eyes light up because she's happy to see you. You hear the joy in her voice when she says your name and when she hugs you. And you feel her love and you smell your friend's smell. Or when you get home after a hard day at work and your dog runs to meet you, you see the wagging tail, you hear his excited bark, you feel the warmth of his presence. Can you imagine taking a bite from your favorite chocolate or a sip of your favorite coffee without tasting it? It's unimaginable. Senses are the brain's way of finding out what is going on, good or bad. And to find out what's going on, we have two groups of senses. The senses that tell us what's going on around us, called outside senses, and the senses that are called inside senses, because they tell us what's going on inside the body. For example, when the bladder is full and we need to run. The 5 outside senses are more well known. The skin enables us to touch and feel. The nose enables us to smell. The tongue enables us to taste. The ears enable us to hear. And the eyes enable us to see. The inside senses are less known but crucial to move gracefully and maintain balance. When the inside and outside senses work well together, they enable us to feel happy, confident, intelligent, and then it's easy to connect with others and have meaningful relationships. But when the inside and outside senses do not work well together, we feel stressed, fragmented, clumsy, insecure, dumb. We become withdrawn and frustrated and even aggressive, in an attempt to control the environment. We take our senses for granted, and it's only when we lose a sense that we become aware of how important the senses are in our day-to-day living. The senses stimulate brain development. It enhances positive self-esteem and confidence. The senses enable us to connect with others and with ourselves. If we as adults are so vulnerable to the quality input from our senses, can you imagine how the senses would impact on a baby? During a healthy pregnancy, the conditions in utero are perfect to gradually wake up each of the senses and connect the sense with the sensory receptor area in the brain. The senses literally plug into the brain before the brain can make sense of the sensory information and tell the muscles to respond. The natural birth process gradually prepares a baby's sensory system to adapt to life outside of the womb. Can you imagine the sensory tsunami that hits a baby's brain during birth when his world, as he knows that it is destroyed and he has to adjust to life outside the womb? The senses pick up sensation from inside and outside the body, but the brain gives meaning to it. Let's apply our knowledge of the senses and learn from Sino in Red Hill, an informal settlement near Simonstown. Information from the senses must flow to the brain and muscles to enable a baby to respond to his environment. When there is a constant flow of information, a baby responds appropriately to his environment. When information flows, it is similar to the flow of traffic. It flows and stops and waits and changes direction. Jean Ayres is the mother of sensory integration, and she says when information doesn't flow freely between the senses, brain and muscles, it creates something similar to a traffic jam in the brain. Babies and young children use movement and crying to show us when they experience a traffic jam in the brain. When a baby's senses are flooded with too much information, the baby experiences a traffic jam in the brain. And you can recognize that when a baby is fussy or anxious or crying too much or moving in an erratic manner. A traffic jam interferes with latching, feeding, metabolism, sleeping, and it's generally known as failure to thrive. When the environment is soothing and supportive, sensory information flows freely through the brain. Baby latches and feeds with ease, metabolizes with ease, and sleeps deeply. When the environment is supportive and soothing, a baby thrives. In this episode, we have learned senses are the brain's way of finding out what is going on. We have two groups of senses. 3 inside senses that tell us what is happening inside the body. 5 outside senses that tell us what is happening outside the body. Input from the senses must flow to the brain and muscles. Flow equals thrive. Traffic jam equals failure to thrive. In the next 6 episodes, we will explore each of the senses in sequence: touch, movement, balance, smell, taste, hearing, and sight.